All right, so let's take a look at how we could work with forms, right? At some point, we're going to have to prompt the user to provide us with some information so that we can use it to edit some of our data, right? Or provide some information to create new data, right? So for instance, we might want to be able to create a new module, right? Perhaps we want to have some input field and maybe a plus sign there with a button that we can add new modules, yeah? Or maybe we want to rename a module. So at some point, we'll need to put some input fields, some buttons, right? Interact with the user. So here we have a module list that is maintaining a state, an array of the various modules, is rendering it and whatnot, and we would like to perhaps add a little form at the top, right, where we can type maybe the name of a brand new module, right, and then maybe a button that we can click on it, and then let the React know that we want to add that module to the list of modules. Okay, so let's do that. We'll add an input field. We'll declare an event handler and saying, hey, if you type this, maintain the state somewhere, right, of whatever you type. As you type, keep track of what is that you are typing. We'll show you how to do this a little easier in a minute. And as we go, we store in the state, the actual title that you're typing. As you're typing, we want to store that information somewhere so that when you click on the button to add the module, we are keeping track of that value of that input field so we can use it as the title of the brand new module. All right, and once we have typed the name of the new module, we can have a button that if we click on it, right, we can then say, all right, we're going to call a local function, and then that function will be responsible to update the state. It's going to say, hey state, I know you already have 5 modules, but I'm going to create a new module, and I'm going to push it into that array. Yes, and when this function updates this state, right? The component says, "Oh, my state changed. Let me see if this change affects the DOM." Right? It says, "Well, I have 4 modules rendered, and now I have 11 in memory. I need to re-render something. Right? I need to go back and make a diff and say, is this module already rendered? Is this module? Yep. Ooh, this one is not there. Let me go add it." Right? And it adds it to the DOM. It's very smart. The React makes a lot of optimizations so that it can compare a virtual DOM, right, with a data model and sees if there's a difference. If it sees a difference, then it updates only those differences, right, so that it doesn't have to throw away DOM elements that are already rendered, that are perfectly fine, right, so that because writing to the DOM is very expensive, right, it's the slowest thing that in the entire pipeline, right. So React has tons and tons of optimizations to avoid having to update the DOM whenever possible. Make sense? Right. So it maintains this virtual DOM. All right. So let's work on this. Let's add an input field. Let's see. Here's our module list, and our module list is rendering this UL, and this UL is being rendered where? Right here. Right. There's our UL. Rendered right here. So let's add an input field above this. What we can do is add another li right above our rendering of these various line items, and we can style it with a list item group. So that's an empty line item right there, and we can stick an input field in there, right? Input. We can stick a form control. We're going to style it. There we go. There's our input field. There it is, right? And below that, perhaps we can stick a button under there. You say button that says add module. Right underneath, it looks ugly. Let's style it. We'll say class. We'll style it as a button primary. That's going to paint it blue. And we're going to expand it to take up the entire parent width. So btn block. right? There it is. So this is add module. So that's our little form, right? That we can type the name of a new module, and when we click on add module, it'll add a brand new module underneath. Make sense? All right. So let's do that. So what we're going to do is that we need to maintain the state of these new modules that we're going to be creating. Yes? So to do that, anything that we want to keep track of, right, as the state changes over time, we need to put it in the state. Right? We need to put the initial state of whatever it is that we want to track. Right? So we want to track the state of a new module as an object, right, that has a some bogus ID, right, and it has some empty title to get started, right? So the title might be empty. So maybe an empty title. Make sense? Everybody good? And our input field, we're going to tie the value of that input field. We're going to tie it to the value of that state, right? We're going to say the value of that input field, grab it from that state, this.state.module.title. Right, grab that. Right, so right now it's empty, but if I start off with some new module, right, notice that it grabs the value from that state variable. See that? Right? And what we're going to do is that perhaps that might be the default. Right, the default name of all modules. Right, if I click on add module, maybe add new modules, all called new modules. Right, just like if you're creating a new document or file, it might say new file 1, new file 2, new file 3, and later on you can come back and maybe rename the files. So something like that might be appropriate here as well. Okay, so we could actually do that. Right, we could leave this input field for a second. Notice what I'm doing here, right? I'm breaking up every single attribute. I'm breaking it up into a single line. Yes? That makes it easier to read for everybody else. Right? Notice that I can't read this add on the right-hand side, so it's a good idea to just break up into multiple lines to make it easier to read for everybody else. Remember, your code is not yours, right? It belongs to the team. Whatever you can do to make life easier for the rest of the team, the better. All right, so we'll come back to the input field in a minute. But the button, what we could do is right here, we can notify some event handler that we're clicking the button, right? And that button can then, that event handler could then grab that module, right? That brand new module that is in the state. I can grab that and then push it into the array of modules, right? And the whole thing should re-render. Let's do that. Right, here's our button here. We can say on click. Right, we still use the low-level raw, out of the box event handlers that come with JavaScript, right? But we tie it to event handlers written in React. Right, so we say that if we click on this and if we click on this button, we're going to call create module. Create module. The function doesn't exist. Right? It's complaining that it doesn't exist. So let's create it. Here it is. Create module. All right. Now, the implementation of this function, I'm going to use the new syntax, the ES syntax. If you don't use the ES syntax, you have to do a lot of the boilerplate code that is here is using the old ES5 syntax, right? Where you have to register the event handler. You have to do all sorts of things. If you use the new ES6 syntax, you can do away with a lot of that boilerplate code. So I'm gonna use the new syntax, which is create module is a function, right? That has the following body. Right? This is the new ES6 syntax. What do we want to do? Well, we want to grab the current new module here, right? And we're going to push it into the list of modules over here. Yes? Let's do that. All right, we're going to say, we're going to grab, we're going to want to update the state. We want to change the state, No, and so we would assume that we could do this, right? This dot state push. Yes, we could do that, but actually there's a whole API that we should use instead, right? There's a whole API that manipulates the state and then tells the infrastructure, hey, the state changed, right? Go compare to see if you need to re-update the DOM, all right? That API is the following. It's called this.set state, right? This.set state, it's implemented, inherited from the component. Yes, it's inherited. You just have to notify it that, hey, the state's changed. And what changed? What changed? We can tell it exactly what's changed, right? The modules changed, right? I'm going to want to add something to the modules. Yes? So what is the module? The module is going to be the following, is whatever the modules was, right, and concatenate it with the, wait, is this a, I'm going to add the new module, this dot state dot module, then concatenate it with all the rest of the modules. This dot state dot modules. I'm missing something with that syntax. All right. This is also a new syntax, the dot dot dot, right? This new syntax in ES6 means I don't want to have to iterate over all those things, right? Just copy them over. Just bring all the content that is in that array and copy it over into this array, right? So as opposed to doing a for loop or doing an append or concatenate or doing it myself manually, right? It's such a common use case of the language that you have to iterate over an array and copy over all the elements into a new array that there's a whole syntax for that now. Yes?
How is this different from setting the state?
Yes, until you don't call the dot set state, it doesn't know that the state has changed, right? You can change it locally, right? But the component is not aware that it changed until you call dot set state. That's another way of doing it. You could change the dot this. You could say this dot state dot modules, and then you can do a push, right? You can push something in there, but then here you would have to say modules is equal to this dot state dot modules, right? You will need to notify it. Not until you call set state will it know that the state has changed. Yes?
So if you do the dot 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 first, it means you're appending to the end.
Exactly. You can put it in the front or you can put it in the end.
You can't put it anywhere in the middle.
I guess so. I guess you can, right? You could put something in the front, comma, dot dot dot, whatever you have there, comma, followed by something else. Yeah, you could do that. Yes.
What happened if you
Never tried it though. Yes.
this state module dot push and then the set state function by running
It would do a compare, right? If you do it, what did you leave blank?
if you don't have that modules or and you don't update the modules to this dot modules,
Yep.
you push the new module onto the state and then you just call and update this dot set state.
So the dot set state, it takes as argument a JSON object and will only update the fields that are listed in that JSON object. If nothing is listed, it won't change anything. Yeah. All right, so let's play around with this. Create modules. I'm missing something. Create modules declared. Okay, this is supposed to be this dot create modules, probably. Well, that's what it's complaining about. All right, excellent. So we had create. Notice that it's adding all these modules at the top. See that? I could have added at the bottom. Make sense? All right. What we'd like to be able to do is that instead of just adding new modules, just blindly just copying over this single module, ideally I want to be able to actually update the module. Yes, the name of the module that I want to create. So let's do that.